Uh, Hello, my name is John Pagonis. It's good to see you here to talk about UX and backends while they're doing the big data session next door. I'm going to be talking about small data. So, good afternoon. My name is John Pagonis. I work for Zansi Labs, where I'm a Scrum coach and UX researcher. So I'm a bit bipolar, if you like. At Zansi Labs, we help people produce useful software. And by useful, we mean that the software has both usability and utility. It does the right thing and is usable for the user. So today I'm going to start with a true story. I may not be a good programmer, I may not be a good developer, but I'm still going to give you this story. Since I started developing software from my early days in the 80s with my Amstrad, then with my Atari, it didn't matter whether I was using Linux, SunOS or SymbianOS or some other operating system, C, C++, Ruby, doesn't matter the language, the OS, or the environment, I always found myself struggling with data. Again, your mileage will vary. And I realized that this struggle transcended across domains. It didn't matter what I was doing, mobile phone software, insurance, machine learning, whether it was on the cloud, whether it was on mobile, I still struggle with data. And not necessarily big data, small data. Actually, it was changing data. The changing of data was actually driving me mad. And then I started observing my patterns. You know, I'm a coach, so I've learned how to observe and improve. And I was looking at what was going wrong. And I realized I was actually struggling with data. I was struggling with a particular kind of data because I work in drivers, I work in operating system internals, I worked in protocols and communications a lot. And arguably, in those projects, we dealt with a lot of data. So what was going wrong? I had to find out. And what I realized is I was struggling with data when users, you know them, and UIs were involved. Not when protocol stacks or operating systems or drivers were involved, but when users were in the mix. That got me thinking. And by the way, you can admit it too, when you work with users, sometimes it's difficult, okay? So, and what do I mean by struggled? I'm talking about frustration. I'm talking about bugs. I'm talking about wasted time, effort, money, fear, anger. It was basically dark side stuff, yeah? The frustration was driving me mad. And then I started thinking to myself, this is happening to other people as well. Especially when I was helping teams, I observed that they would struggle, and a particular case of struggling with data was when you have the product owner, product manager, or client even, the UXer, the front-end guy and the back-end guy arguing about user versus system needs. And you had this class. And the product manager or the UXer would say, but the user needs this. And the back-end guy would go, no, we cannot do this, we cannot do this. And the front-end guy is in the middle going, oh my God, I have to do it for them. You know, the classic scenario. Okay, then, I wasn't alone. That's a good thing. So I'm going to give you very few easy to comprehend scenarios I faced every day in coaching teams that are arguably maybe Mickey Mouse for some of you. The classic one. We cannot do this because this is how the system works. You're laughing, eh? Well, who's been through this? Raise of hands. Okay, you have my sympathy. Classic one where the UXer comes in and says, okay, I need you to do this simple thing for me. Just a simple thing. And your colleague goes like, no, it's not simple, you don't know. That's a classic one. The other one, well, we cannot do that in the UI because this is how the data comes from the database. And all the poor user wants is to basically sort some data, some fields by a different attribute. And because someone never actually thought about it, never created the index or the API, it cannot be done easily. So you wait for the next iteration sprint, whatever you call it. Who's been through this? Yeah? I feel your pain. That's the best one. Now you tell me I have to do a lot of joins. Really? The poor customer just wants a report. Yes, the data are denormalized in a report. It's called a spreadsheet. Yeah? But no, you need a lot of joins, and therefore someone has to do back-end work. This is an interesting one. Have you seen those big forms in enterprise software where you actually, you know you will be stressed because you will not have enough time to fill them until the bottom of the screen before a phone call rings? It's a classic one where the user wants to do a partial save. And obviously, you cannot do this because the model has to validate. You cannot save some of your data before an email arrives or the phone rings or your manager interrupts you. You have to go through it for half an hour, take a deep breath and save it and hope for the best, you know? Just because the physical model doesn't allow for the user's mental model. Another way of actually talking about this is the classic one. This is not how we store the data. Sorry, Mr. UXer, we cannot do that. Classic one. Someone's laughing. Okay. Now, this is a classic one that happens very often, is when the user actually wants to go to the system and look at the previous version of their work. And we don't do that because you only save a timestamp and we update certain fields. You know, again, the user's mental model is violated because the physical system cannot support it. Who's been through this? Enterprise software people, huh? Okay. All right. Do these sound familiar? Who thinks that these are not familiar? Anyone? Who thinks this sounds familiar? Yeah? Okay, so it happens to other people as well. That's good for me. Excellent. Are they difficult to solve? Who thinks these are difficult to solve? Okay, modestly difficult? Easy? Okay. And the rest of you are really scared. Fair enough. Can you spot any patterns in those previous scenarios? Anyone? Sorry? Me? Blame the user. Thank you. I didn't pay him. Well, not exactly, but that's what happens. Basically, the physical data model governs what our UIs can do. We impose a constraint from how we structure the data to our UIs. If the physical data model cannot support it, then we're talking about a lot of pain for the front-end people and the back-end people, and especially for the user, before the user can do what they need to do. How can we get into this mess? That's a theory I have. It's because we're doing it backwards. We allow the physical data model to dictate what the UI can do at the expense of the user's mental model. You know, every user has a mental model of how this magic we call computing and software works. And we punish the user for building a mental model because the UI cannot support the user's mental model because the UI is crippled from our physical data model, from the bits, the bytes, the arrays, the floats, and the blobs in the database. We restrict the UI, therefore, we restrict how the user is allowed to think. We're doing this backwards. And my theory is that we're doing this because as developers, we were taught from perhaps the early age that we should go to data structure and algorithms first when we build our software. Yeah? That's what they told us at the university, or that's what the textbooks say. Learn the data structures, learn the algorithms, and then you can learn how to build software. And therefore, when was the last time you heard a professor telling you, computer science professor, go to the social science department first, learn about the human, and then come and write some software. Never happens, yeah? But this is the reality. Nobody told us that. We were hacking away code at the university, and nobody told us, go and learn about humans, and then come back in the software engineering class. Nobody did that. And actually, this is how the world and business works. And so, the UX designer is called to spray some magic pixie dust on top of the software to UX it up. And of course, you cannot magically turn a poorly designed backend, a poorly designed data model, into a humane user experience. You can't. You're not a magician. So what can we do then? How about we engage, as developers, the user from the start? Engage the user. It's a common organizational pattern, by the way. Jim Complin has a book about organizational patterns, and it's one of them. And it describes highly performance organizations, and this is one of the main patterns. You engage the user from the start. I don't know if you know Mr. Jakob Nielsen, the father of usability. He says it cleanly, yeah? User research is a reality check about the software and the product you build. Instead of speculating what a user does, what a user needs, their problems, their pains, go out and find out. You don't have to speculate. I know our average user. There's no such thing as an average user. I know what they do. I've talked to them. Really? Have you observed them? Were you clinical about it? Did you bias them? User research is a reality check. That's the first thing we can do as developers in our organizations. Talk to people. Observe them. And let's say we have UXers in our team. Yeah? How about we engage with them? Just because we're writing back-end code, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't speak with the UX designers talking to the front-end developers, yeah? And we should do it from the start, right when the mockups are done, right? Yeah? Yes? Who thinks this is right? No? You can see this coming, huh? Not really. Not when the mockups are ready. Here is a radical idea. Get ready for this. Are you ready for a radical idea? Yes? Go on. Okay. How about we do our data modeling together with UX designers? Yeah? Radical? You talk with the people who happen to be your users, and you build the data model which constrains the UI, which interfaces with the users, together with those UX designers. So you do your data modeling with UX designers. And when you do that, you get a lot of insights about how people behave in their domain. The UXers will give you transcripts of user interviews. They will tell you a story, a day in the life of the user. They will show you videos from interviews, from observations, from usability tests. They will show you prototypes. And with them, we can actually build our data model in such a way that doesn't constrain the UI, so that we support the mental model of the user. So if we speak the language of the user, we are able to design data models from user journeys, data models that make sense, that support the UIs, which support those user journeys. Data models which support the UI in order for the user to do what they need to do, effectively support the user's mental model, how they think about the world, how they think about the system, how they think about their business. And then they are the experts. Yeah? We're just supplying magic to them to do what they need to do. Our magic better work. Mr. Alan Cooper, who is an interaction design expert, and his scene in life is that he was part of the VB team, said this 10 years ago. Our responsibility is to ensure that our products, our software products, adequately reflect the user's mental models. Ensure that the product reflects the user's mental model. And when you do that, you have happy users, satisfied customers. If we don't do this, we get the wrong product. We waste time and money building something that the user cannot actually fully use. That constrains the user. That creates unhappy users and unsatisfied customers. And most importantly, it creates waste. Depending on who you believe, 60 to 80% of all of the enterprise software features are left unused. If you have money, maybe you don't care about the 60% or 80% crud there. Maybe you don't care. But if you care about time to market, you don't want to put the 80% in front of the 20% that matters. That can kill your business. So what we need to do is build products which are useful. We don't want to be building the wrong products. I don't think anyone in here, or maybe you do, has enough time and money to be building the wrong product. Do you? Anyone? That's good then. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Q&A from you awesome people.
Any brave ones? Go on. Maria?
Yeah, thanks for the talk.
Thanks for the talk.
I was wondering, you make a talk about how you design your model from a user's perspective, but what I learned before is that you should make your model agnostic so it can be used in different use cases. If you model around the user, basically it prevents from talking to other systems, or well, it doesn't prevent, but it hinders talking to different systems and such.
Good question. Okay, so I said that we're doing it backwards. We're thinking of data structures, bits and bytes. We're building it, and then we expect the UI to be able to do what the user needs to do, but we constrain the UI because of the physical data model. If we start from the other way around, let's say you have a user journey, yeah? And you analyze it with a UX designer, you see the interactions, the motivations, the goals of the user. You can pick up the language, you can pick up the domain objects, and you can pick up the relationships from the nouns and the verbs, for example, yeah? And you can start building from that end back to a physical data model. As you do that, you build your domain model before the physical data model. So when you do that, you have this layer that protects you from what you alluded to, yeah? I'm not saying build everything, because there are certain things which are very specific to the system. I'm saying start with a UX designer, talk to them, and talk to humans, and build the data model from there towards the back, not from the back towards the front, yeah? Because then you will be able to support what the user needs, not what the system needs, and hopefully you can basically match them, yeah?
Okay. Hi. I'm having a similar background with yours.
You have my sympathy.
But the problem is, I don't know if people here in the room know about the project Xanadu. Ted Nelson's Xanadu.
I cannot.
It's a system that a user was invented.
Can you repeat that? You didn't hear it?
Yes, there is a project called Xanadu, which someone called Ted Nelson was suggested. It is an imaginary project with 3D vision and amazing things that the system should do.
Okay.
but it was one of the biggest software failures ever. Because it was someone who came from, his background was mostly not software engineering, it was mostly from the side of graphics.
Okay.
The problem is that, my point here is when you try to take the user's perspective, sometimes is not easily implemented into software. Let's say an example. We're not able to have this amazing interaction with WebSockets, for example, when you press a button and you don't have to refresh the page, I don't know, since Ajax came along. So if we have this kind of requirement back in 1995, that would be a difficult thing to implement. So my point is, yes, we can have this aspect of starting from the user and going backwards, but there are sometimes limitations that happen in the...
Correct.
And how you cross a line and say, no, I'm not going to do this, I'm going that.
I get it. Actually, I wasn't expecting this question. Okay, so, so here's the diagram that will help you, because I wasn't expecting it. So when you try to build software, you have to look at three aspects: the business, the users, and the system. Yeah? And you have a business, so you have to make money. Yeah? So you have to cater for the business needs. You have to cater for the user needs. And obviously, you must keep in mind that you're building this on top of a system. So you have to basically use all three aspects of this in your project. You have, obviously, when you have a business and user needs matched, you have a product market fit, and that's good for you, good for the business. But you should be able to support what you're trying to do with your existing system. And if you cannot, then you can evolve it. Or maybe you can because they're asking for too many things. So you have to pay attention to this: business, users, system. And I'm sure that you can match those three in an iterative way. You can create a learning. The whole point of the MVP is what? Learning. Okay? So you can create iterations of software that actually cater for all those three things: learn, improve, and continue. Now, another thing about users is, and we have to be very careful about this, we don't ask them what they need. We discover what they need through UX research. You don't ask someone about what do you need. Maybe they know. When someone gives you an answer about what they need, you know that they have thought about it, so it's important for them. But actually, what you have to discover is the underlying need. What is the problem you're trying to solve? What is the need they're trying to cover? Yeah? But keep this in mind. You have to cater for business, users, and system at the same time. Yeah? Someone else?
We had one more question here at the front. First
Yes.
row.
Hi. I found myself nodding.
Sorry?
I found myself nodding along with agreeing with every single one of
But
your
you're a nice
examples.
guy. But you're a nice guy anyway.
Yes. But the problem is this. My question is this. What happens if the user is, by its definition, spoiled? And you talked about enterprise software.
So you've worked for trading desks.
I don't, as a matter of fact. I'm a front-end developer, but I did have I did have a project where I had to develop something for people working in a bank. And for them, every single table should ideally behave like a full Excel spreadsheet. And every single text area should ideally behave like a full version of Word with the ability to upload images, inline them, and everything. So the rudimentary UX research done by the consultants that hired me basically said, these guys are bankers. They absolutely love their Microsoft products. We need to do something close to them. But the business, with me advising, and the backend developer said, guys, there's no way we can pull this off. How do you consolidate this?
Okay.
How do you, when do you say no to the user?
No to the user, okay. A very good one. Okay, first of all, it's difficult, and it's a lot of practice and training, and UX researchers should be able to do this for you. So what you need to discover is basically needs. The magic word is needs. It goes back to the same answer. What are you trying to achieve? This is the first question I ask clients and users in those circumstances, not in general. Then you try to discover their goals, their pains. And if those are important enough, and they really cover their needs, and their needs actually make money for the business, then you do it. In order to protect yourself in those situations, now I'm wearing my Scrum coach hat, you need a very strong product owner to help you there and insulate you from the situation, yeah? Otherwise, it does no harm to update your CV. As Bruce Tognazini used to say, you know, you win some, you lose some. But you need that strong product owner, and you need to go to underlying needs. Find pains, find problems, and then try to cover them. It's very difficult because people, when they need something, they think visually. Oh, I need a red button there. No. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? And you have to play the cassette over and over again and use certain UX techniques to basically elicit the true requirements. Yeah? Anyone else?
Last question.
No?
Thank you, Yanni.
Thank you very much.